Hey. All right, guys. Hector here with our next Hardstyle Live. I've got a good friend of mine that I'm going to be interviewing today, and her name is Artemis Scantalides. Artemis and I actually met, I want to say, Artemis, like at our level 2, I think the last level 2, or CKFMS it was, probably about 2013.
Yes. Or
something like that.
20.
So Artemis has a great story for you guys today. Artemis is a very accomplished martial artist in the martial art of Kung Fu. She's a StrongFirst team leader. She actually ran her own training facility for 5 years. It was called Iron Body Studios out of Massachusetts. And she actually has a really good workshop, and she's got a passion for teaching women that it's okay to be strong. And she's got a really good workshop that is called I Am Not Afraid to Lift. And she's been running that workshop very successfully for about 3 years. She's currently in a transition in her life, which is a great story she's going to share with you guys today. But at the end, we're going to kind of give you some information of how you can find Artemis and how you can follow some of the things that she's doing. So Artemis, thanks for taking the time and sitting down with us today and telling us a little bit about yourself. Like, tell us how this all began, from where you were before to running successful workshops and teaching women about strength training and etc.
Thank you for having me, Hector. I'm happy to be here. So I started out in the fitness industry part-time as a cycling and indoor cycling instructor, and that was about 15 years ago, almost, a little, just under. It was in 2003. And then I transitioned full-time. I was working full-time in an office job at the time when I held a part-time group fitness instructor position. And I knew that working in an office was not what I wanted to do. It just didn't suit me. I'm someone who has been athletic from a very young age. I started taking ballet when I was 3.5, and then that's in my late 20s, I transitioned into martial arts and started studying Kung Fu. So it was something that was really difficult for me to be in this office atmosphere. So in 2008 is when I transitioned full-time into the industry, and I was working for a commercial gym as a personal trainer and group fitness instructor. And I did that for 3 years, and I knew I wanted more. I wanted to be able to give my clients more than I could offer them in a commercial gym setting, where they're very focused on the numbers and less about the quality of the training. And so in 2011, I met my partner, Eric Gann. I had, at that time, I started working in the fitness industry full-time in the Washington, D.C. area in Arlington, Virginia. I was living down there because I went to the George Washington University, and I had stayed down in that area for a number of years. I was born in Massachusetts. So I moved back to Massachusetts in 2009, and I met my partner, Eric Gann, and in 2011, we started our business, Iron Body Studios. And we started by subleasing space. We didn't lease our own space. We sublet space from another gym owner. And then in 2013 is when we went and we got our first facility on our own. And it was great because we were able to focus, both of us, our passion lies with the kettlebell and kettlebell training. So we were able to focus on kettlebell training, and we were also able to focus on giving better quality training to our clients and our students than really that is possible in a commercial gym. I mean, you can do it in a commercial gym, but sometimes there's just other outside factors that interfere with it.
Right. Yeah. Limitations. Like that.
Yeah. And so we did that for 5 years. Eric is an athletic trainer, and he was working for Boston University at the time, right before we started to run our business. And he was working as a head athletic trainer for Boston University. And he was at a point in his career where he needed a little bit of a change. So he was very interested in transitioning into another setting and applying his skills in another setting as a strength coach, and being able to help people with everything that he knew about rehabilitation. So he left his job at BU, I left my job at the commercial gym, and we just jumped into running our fitness facility together. And since then, last year we made a decision. We had, running a gym is really hard. A lot of people come into fitness and they think that, it's the end all be all. Having your own facility is, you're going to make so much money, and that is like the definition of success in the fitness industry. And when there are many other ways that you can have success in the fitness industry, and quite frankly, you're not guaranteed to make a lot of money running a facility. It's a lot of hard work, 24/7. It just completely takes over your life. So after 5 years of running it, last year we came to a point where we sat down and we talked, and we decided this is, where there's this great book by Henry Cloud, who's he's a psychiatrist or psychologist, and it's called Necessary Endings, and he talks about, okay, so fast forward the movie to 5 years from now, and is that where you want to be? And that's what we did. We fast forwarded the movie of our lives, and we decided, no, this is not where we want to be. We do not want to be running a facility in 5 years. And Eric really wanted to get back into the rehabilitation setting, get back to working as an athletic trainer. As a couple, we wanted a better quality of life. We really didn't have a great quality of life as a couple running this facility. And I was pretty burnt out last year. I was doing a lot of travel, a lot of speaking, a lot of teaching workshops, and I was traveling every month, often twice a month. Last year, it was just really insane. So I got to the point where I was pretty fried, and I had to take a step back and think about, like, okay, this is not a sustainable way for me to be operating as a professional. And so Eric decided to start to look for jobs in athletic training, and he came across this position in Las Vegas working for Cirque du Soleil. And I was like, hey, this is a one-time opportunity of a lifetime, so you should definitely apply for it and see what happens. And he ended up getting the position, so we moved out here. He moved out in November, and I moved out in January. So for me, once I got here, I applied for a position as a strength coach with Cirque du Soleil. So I have a part-time position with them, and I'm supporting them part-time, and then I have my online training business that I'm running. And I've actually been getting back into, which is really funny how things just kind of come full circle. There's another StrongFirst instructor here. Her name is Gabriella Walters, and she owns a Pilates and cycling studio. And they also teach kettlebell classes. It's called Inferno Hot Pilates. And I met her in March when I was leading a team out at a StrongFirst certification in LA. And so we connected then, and I've been going to her studio, and I'm getting back I've been taking cycling classes, and we were chatting about launching a new kettlebell class format at her studio. And so I've been getting back into group fitness with her, which is awesome. I'm like, because it's something that I love, and I love her studio. She has really great energy. Her instructors are amazing. So yeah, that's where I am right now.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's kind of like we can't stay away. We just have that itch. You just have so much to share, and it's almost like if I keep this to myself, it's kind of being greedy. So, well, that's amazing. Like Cirque du Soleil, that's like one of some of the most athletic, flexibly strong, like you name it, all in one package athletes. So that's really a great blessing and opportunity for you guys to learn from them and then learn from you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's very different from general population. So.
Yeah, because these guys can do anything. They can pretty much do just about anything. So tell us a little bit about. I know there's one of your biggest accomplishments. Well, I guess you said you got into group fitness. So like, how did you come across kettlebell training from you said working you're working a desk job and you're kind of working part-time, and then like, when did that dang kettlebell like come into your life? Like, tell us a little bit about that journey.
It was 2008, and I was working for Equinox as Equinox Fitness Clubs in Tysons Corner, Virginia, as a group fitness instructor, and they were rolling out a kettlebell class. And so they brought in, it was my first kettlebell certification. It was not RKC, not StrongFirst, but they had a kettlebell cert, and for those instructors who wanted to teach the class. And so I took it. And immediately I was like, oh my gosh, I love the kettlebell. I just fell in love with the tool and became obsessed with it. And yeah, so that's how that started. And then when I met Eric it was when we decided, hey, both of us want to get because it was before StrongFirst was established, but we wanted to get our KC certification, our Hardstyle kettlebell certification.
Right. Nice. Yeah. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So coming across the kettlebell journey, we've all drank the Kool-Aid, right? We're obsessed with it. We've seen the simplicity of it, but yet the huge impact that it has on strength and flexibility and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So tell us a little bit about, so in case nobody knows, Artemis is what we call an Iron Maiden. An Iron Maiden is, an achievement that you earn, and there's 3 lifts. So it's a strict military press with a 24 kilo bell, a strict tactical pull-up to the neck with a 24 kilo, and then a pistol, pretty much a rock-bottom pistol squat with a 24, and that's for the ladies, not the guys, that's for the ladies. So very few people hold this title and this achievement. And Artemis, tell us a little bit about what intrigued you about wanting to go for something like that. What was that journey like? Because we know that it didn't happen overnight, right? We know that there's some history behind that. So tell us a little bit about what made you decide, man, I want to press a 53-pound kettlebell over my head.
Well, it was at my RKC level 1 certification in 2011, and I saw there were some women who attempted it. And was it 2011? Yeah, it was 2011. And they were at that certification. There were some women who attempted it, and funny story behind that was actually right before lunch at that certification. Oh gosh, and this was in St. Paul, Minnesota, and there were so many people at that certification. I don't know, there was there were 100 between the instructors and the students. There was at least 100, probably more. And so right before lunch, I remember Pavel was teaching at the time.
I remember those. Yep.
Certifications. And he said, "Okay, everyone. So we're going to break for lunch, and when we come back from lunch, we are going to do the Iron Maiden Beast Tamer Challenge. Is there anyone here doing the Iron Maiden Beast Tamer Challenge?" And I didn't know what it was. Yeah. So I raised my hand. What is the Iron Maiden Beast Tamer Challenge? If you do not know what the Iron Maiden Beast Tamer Challenge is, then you will not be doing it. Put it in your manual. And I was like, okay. So that's kind of the irony of all this. I didn't even know what it was. Yeah. But and that's how I learned what it was. But I was fascinated. The 24 kilogram bell just seemed so massive at the time. So my test bell is 12 kilograms, is 25 pounds. So I was like, wow, is it possible for someone my size to be able to do a pull-up and press something, twice as much as my snatch size bell and pistol squat it? So as soon as I got back from that certification, I started to train for the Iron Maiden Challenge, and I started with the pull-up. I started to work on pull-ups, and at the time, I could do weighted pull-ups, but it was with 10 pounds. 10 pounds was the heaviest I could do weighted pull-ups with. So that was in 2011. And it took me 3 years to get all of the lifts for the Iron Maiden Challenge. And I got the pistol squat I had first. I had that. That was something that was not hard for me. I think that was just from my background in dance and martial arts. I just went and I said, okay, I wonder where I'm at with my pistol. And I pretty much had that right off the bat on my right leg. And then the pull-up came next, and then the press came last. The press was definitely the most challenging. And then so in 2013, you and I assisted at a level 2 certification, a StrongFirst level 2 certification. And that's when it was in the fall of 2013. Yep. And that's when I first attempted the Iron Maiden challenge, and I failed the press, and I failed it miserably. It was like horrendous. And my other lifts were great, but the press was just a disaster. And I had to go back, and I was still determined. I was like, I'm going to finish this. I've trained for, you know, over 2 years for this frickin' thing. Like I am going to finish this. But it was a very humbling experience. It was very humbling to get up there in front of so many people and to just fail, and then to have to come back and admit, like, wow, I really need to work on my technique. It wasn't even about strength when it came to my press. It was about my technique. My technique was just all wrong. I wasn't dialing in the principles, the hardstyle principles of tension and wedging and all that. So I had to come back from that failure and rebuild my technique with really light weights. I mean, I started with half kneeling, 12 kilogram bell, just working on tension techniques. And that's what I did. I worked my way up, like 12 to a 16 to a 20. And then when I finally took it back to standing, and I worked half kneel for a really long, I want to say, probably like two months, maybe even 3 months. I was just working half kneel presses, just working my way up through the weights, just making sure that I could dial in tension techniques and learn how to wedge properly with the kettlebell. And then finally, when I took it to standing, I remember doing my first press again with a 20 kilo standing, 20 kilogram bell. And it was like I was pressing the 20 kilogram for the first time. It was amazing. It was like, wow, I've never pressed the kettlebell like this before. Like I finally dialed in my technique, and I finally understood. Like you get it, but you don't get it until you just kinesthetically, you just like do it. And it was definitely an aha moment. It was really cool. And then it was at that moment that I was like, okay, this is possible. You know, because there were times that I had just struggled with the press so much, and then I failed with it. I was like, well, maybe it's not possible for me to press. You know, I'm too small. You know, I won't be able to press the 24. But then I saw other women who were like close to my size who were pressing. I'm like, God, I have to be. You know, it has to be possible.
Right. Yeah. That's, you know. You said a couple of things that I want to kind of ask you some questions on, but you know, for those that don't understand what Artemis is talking about when she references like tall kneeling and half kneeling. So just imagine tall kneeling, you're literally down on both knees and kind of like kneeling upright, and then half kneeling is you're kind of like in a lunge position and you're kind of pressing from there, and that makes pressing really difficult because for one, it kind of takes the leg drive out. You really can't generate as much tension, and it's really working more of your quote unquote your core. It's a beautiful way to reverse engineer the press and really learn how to press. So that's kind of what she's talking about when she references half kneeling and tall kneeling.
And and the reason why I was doing that was my problem was that I had a terrible lean. So when I got into that half kneeling position, it emphasized it. So it was forcing me to learn how to press, keeping my torso straight and push my body into the bell instead of pushing it away.
Yep, absolutely. So you said something about so I want to kind of ask you a question about goal setting. So this Iron Maiden it was over the course of 3 years.
Yes.
And like I said, it's the whole journey. You learned humility, you learned everything about yourself and then about lifting. And like you said, getting up in front of a crowd, because I remember at that level too, there was like at least 80 participants, at least 80.
Yeah.
So you had about 100 people watching you go through this. You missed the press, and like you could have easily said, you know what, screw this. Maybe it's just not going to happen, because that will break most people, right? It's kind of like that whole stage fright. And a 24 kilo bell, for those that haven't met Artemis, she's all of maybe 5 foot. She's about a 5 foot-ish. And like a 24 kilo bell is almost like half body weight press for Artemis. So the thing looks like a beast when she's trying to press this thing.
Yeah.
So what would you tell a lady that's in your position, even if her goal isn't to do Iron Maiden, but she's like, tell us about that importance of setting that goal and just not freaking giving up on it until you get what you want.
Yeah.
Tell a woman that's like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, or I'm trying to XYZ, like what kind of encouragement would you tell a female that's going through what you went through?
Those things that are hard in the short term, they are the most rewarding in the long term. And so it's about, personally, I don't like to not finish things. So it's like I set this goal for myself, and I was determined to finish it. I was determined to see it through. And so I think no matter what the goal, if you set that goal for yourself, stick to it. See it through. And it's not going to be smooth sailing the whole time. It really isn't. I even had challenges with, there was a point in my training about a year in, maybe like 8 to 12 months in, where I was starting to use the heavier weights a lot more regularly, 20 kilogram, whether it was for get-ups or even racked carries with the 24. And I started to feel, it takes time for your wrists and your forearms to build up that tissue tolerance and strength to having the mass of the weight, that heavy mass of the weight on your arm. And so I started to develop wrist pain and forearm pain, and I had to learn how to manage that and build strength safely to be able to handle those heavier bells. And so I even had like those challenges, never mind the technique part, but just the challenges of managing the heavier weights on my arms. And so it's just, no matter what the goal is, it's not always going to be smooth sailing. And you just have to take a step back and you have to look at it like, okay, well, what can I learn from this challenge? Adversity builds character. Adversity builds strength. Adversity builds, it helps you to look back and gain some perspective on really what is challenging, and helps you to be grateful for definitely those easier times.
Nice.
So
Great.
I think it's worth sticking it through.
Yeah, sometimes you got to go through that. You got to be forged through the fire sometimes to look back and then like, wow, there was a reason behind all this.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of talk about like the nutritional side, I've gotten many, I get many questions from, as a coach myself, and we work mostly with women in their 30s here in Corpus. So like, tell some of the Facebook world and in social media, like, what are some nutritional things that you like? Do you follow a specific like diet? Like, what kind of regimen do you follow? There's so much out there between you here. Like one year it's like ketogenic, and one year it's eat carbs, and next year it's this. There's so much noise out there. Just like the strength world, there's so much noise.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind giving us maybe a little glimpse into like, what is your day like? What kind of nutritional habits do you follow?
And so my big thing is I love desserts. That's like I love like apple pie and ice cream. Like desserts are my thing.
Guilty.
But I do follow, I have a diet that I do follow, or I don't know if I want to call it diet, but I have like my nutritional routine that I follow. And I always make sure, so protein is really important. So you want to make sure that you're getting, someone's like a sugar addict. You want to make sure that you're eating enough protein. So protein number 1 is based upon your body weight. So it's usually about, I usually have anywhere from like 17 to 20 ounces of protein. I think it's half your body weight in grams it's 1 gram per lean body mass, right? So say like, for me, like I'm like around 115. So my lean mass is probably closer to like 90 to 100 pounds. So I want to make sure I'm getting like 90 to 100 grams of protein a day. And that never really changes because that's dependent on your body weight. So unless your body weight changes, that's always going to pretty much be the same because your body's only going to process as much as, according to your weight. Carbohydrates depends on activity. And sometimes carbs work for people and sometimes they don't. I'm someone who I am able to process carbohydrates. I've always been able to process carbohydrates and healthy. And I mean, when I speak of carbohydrates, I'm not talking about vegetables. I'm talking about healthy carbohydrates like oatmeal, bread, pasta. So carbohydrates are something that I tend to cluster around my activity. So, and also earlier in the day. So I'm more active earlier in the day. So I tend to eat more of my carbohydrates at breakfast, at my first and second meal. And then if I'll have carbohydrates later in the day, if I have some sort of activity, if I've taken a class or I've taught a class, or, you know, when I go into work at Cirque du Soleil, my hours are in the evening, and I'm running around, you know, coaching people. So, on those days that I'm like, maybe I'm not at home writing or reading or whatever it is in the evening, and I'm working in the evening, or I'm attending class, and I'll also have some carbohydrates in the evening. And then vegetables, and your healthy carbohydrates are going to be your oatmeal, bread, and fruit too. So fruit falls into that category too, right? So yes.
Somehow fruit has gotten a bad name out of nowhere, you know.
Yeah, it's not, you just have to treat it like, you know, you just have to treat it like carbohydrates. There's nothing bad about it. You just have to treat it like, okay, well, you want to cluster it around your highest activity. So around your workouts, or when your busiest times of the day that you're on your feet, because it falls into the healthy carbs category. And then just always making sure that you have like 1 to 2 servings of vegetables at all your meals. And I tend to eat anywhere from like 3 to 4 meals a day. I spread my protein out depending on how many meals I have a day, and then my carbohydrates. And I found that last year I followed Renaissance Periodization. They have some really good plans. They have a healthy eating template. They have a cutting template if you want to lose weight, if you want to lose some fat or fat loss. And then they even have a massing template for if you want to bulk up and you want to put on some muscle mass. So they have some really good templates. And I wouldn't say I follow I did follow their cutting template strictly because that was when I started to get into, so I got into powerlifting 3 years ago, and I started to compete in powerlifting, and I was competing in the 52 kilogram weight class, so, which is 114 pounds. And so I used it to just help me to cut. I didn't have to cut a lot of weight, but just to make sure that I was weighing in either at 114 or below. So I started to use those templates, the cutting templates. And I found, I don't follow them strictly, but I found that, you know, they have it's a really good shell. It's a really good base point to start from for nutrition. So I would say I follow, like, as far as the rule of carbohydrates according to their plans, I follow that.
Nice. And what about fats? Like, I'm sure you include healthy fats, right? Avocados, like your oils and nut butters, right?
Yes, I do. So that is something I usually have about a half a serving of fat per meal. I tend to have less fat around my workouts. So, and the meals, like, so say I have breakfast and then I work out and then I have my post-workout meal. Those meals I'll tend to not eat a lot of healthy fat. So like maybe for my breakfast, I'll have an egg. So I have like the fat from the egg yolk, but, I tend to have more of my fats later in the day, that further away from my workouts. But fats are really important. Like, you do need to eat healthy fats, but you also need to keep in mind that if you're eating carbohydrates, you also need to monitor your fat intake. So more carbohydrates you eat, then the less fat you're going to have. The less carbohydrates you're eating, the more fat you're going to have. So those are the carbohydrates and fats are your variables. And Eric, he tends to be fueled better from fats than from carbohydrates. His body doesn't process carbohydrates as easily as I do. So he tends to eat more fats than carbohydrates. So his fat intake is like, you know, for him, he'll be having like, you know, 1.5 servings of fat at a meal, whereas I'm having like a half a serving of fat, and a half a serving is usually 7.5 to 8 grams of fat. So that would be, when it comes to an avocado, it's usually about a third of a small avocado. So I'll have that plus some carbohydrates.
Nice.
So I think it's important to remember your protein always stays the same because it's based upon your body weight, and your carbohydrates and your fats, your variables depending on your activity level and which fuels you better, and how much carbohydrate you're having and how much fat you're having.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people kind of get into trouble is they get, again, there's so much noise out there that they'll cut out carbs and they'll cut out fat, and then I'm protein and vegetables, but like I'm not losing weight. And it's same thing. It's like when you can't dramatically cut both. It's kind of like one or the other. So
yes. Because your body needs to be able to process a nutrient for glucose, and it will eventually. If you eat too much protein, your body will turn that protein into glucose. But I guarantee you, people aren't eating too much protein.
Yeah.
So you need more. If you don't have, if you're just having vegetables, and you're not having any fats, you need additional carbohydrates beyond the carbohydrates in the vegetables to help fuel your activity, or you need your body to be able to process the fat into ketones to use for energy. Yeah, if you're not having carbs and you're having fats.
Something that you said towards the end that we'll close out with, which kind of ties into some of your workshops. You said you took up powerlifting about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you've dealt with this. I deal with this all the time. Like, why in the world would a woman want to take up powerlifting? You know, you have a workshop that's called "I Am Not Afraid to Lift," yep. And with many women, when they see a kettlebell, they see a barbell, right? The cliche, right? Like, oh, I don't want to get bulky, right? I don't want to. So what would you tell a woman that is, struggling to lose weight? She's tried the cardio, everything, but they're terrified of lifting a kettlebell, or they're terrified of lifting a barbell, or God forbid, do powerlifting. What's been your experience like to close out? What would you tell a woman that's kind of has that struggle and that mindset?
If your goal is fat loss and your goal is body transformation, then you need to strength train. You need to lift weights. You need to be able to build that muscle so that your body is building more calories at rest, so that you change your body composition so you have more lean body mass versus fat. And so and also when it comes to, there's something called EPOC, E-P-O-C, right? So your body will burn more calories post either a high intensity interval training workout, related to a cardio workout, or post a strength training workout, which means that your body is needing more nutrients in order to recover. So, and when you lift weights, your muscles need more recovery time than if you go out and you do an endurance run for like an hour, or you're on the Stairmaster for an hour. So if you want to change your body and you want to change its shape and you want to build that muscle and you want to have that shape, you need to lift. You need to lift. And it can be very scary at first, but I would say 10 times out of 10, I've seen, like, even when women get into lifting and they're scared and they're afraid of what's going to happen to their bodies. They're afraid of this change. And I think it's just related to general change. And it's also related to, as women, we're told like our bodies are supposed to look a certain way, which we have to kind of put that aside. But 10 times out of 10, once women get into lifting, they really love not just the body changes that they start to see as a result of strength training, but they just love how they feel as a result. They love that they feel empowered, that they're building confidence. It goes beyond the aesthetic reasons. They start to love all the other reasons as to how strength training is helping them, how it's helping them in their day-to-day, how it's helping them to carry their groceries a lot more easily. They can do that, like, no grocery bag left behind, carry a lot easier than they were before they started strength training, where they can lift their children. And so it's something that can be very scary to get into, but it's once you start doing it, you just have to give it some time. Like with anything, like with any change, you have to just give it a little time, and you will love the results that you see and that you feel.
Fantastic. Well, Artemis, thank you so much for again, taking some time out of your busy day to meet with us and tell your story. I mean, there you have it, guys. I mean, professional strength coach, trainer of Cirque du Soleil, Iron Maiden, StrongFirst team leader. Like, it's okay to eat fats. It's okay to eat carbs in the appropriate, it's all about the timing. And it's okay to lift heavy stuff. It's not going to turn you into some brute looking, bodybuilder. So,
no, and I had a goal. So just as a note for any of the ladies watching, when I got into powerlifting at my first powerlifting meet, I deadlifted 300 pounds. And then after that, I had a goal of my ultimate goal is a 3 times body weight deadlift, which would be about 345. But my next goal was 315 pounds and a 315 pound deadlift. And I did that in March of this year in my garage. And listen, I am not green and I'm not busting out of my clothes. So it's okay to lift heavy. You won't turn into the Incredible Hulk. So
keep preaching it. I love it.
Really empowering. So, yep.
Yeah, I love it. Great. So just to close out, Artemis, where can people find you? Where can they follow you? I mean, what's the best way people can find you and connect with you?
So I'm most active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is Iron Body by Artemis, at Iron Body by Artemis. And I also have a website blog, ironbodybyartemis.com, and I tend to keep that updated with blog posts. And there's also information about all of my online training products, one-on-one training, group training, single cell programs, and as well as any upcoming workshops I have. So I didn't plan any workshops for this year because of the move to Vegas. I did do one recently, a Kettlebell fundamentals workshop here in Vegas. I did do one recently earlier in June, but I don't have any other ones planned right now for this year. But any ones that I do have planned, I always keep my website current with that information.
Great. All right, guys. So there you have it. You can follow Artemis on Instagram. I will be updating her website here on this post. So when she does get back into the grind and starts pushing her workshops again, I highly encourage you look into learning from Artemis. If you want to learn how to get really strong as a woman and know that it's okay, Artemis is the professional that you need to be getting with. So thank you so much, Artemis. Thanks for your friendship. Thanks for sharing your story. And Facebook world, we're out of here. We will see you next Friday. I've got another special guest coming up that I'll be announcing later. So thanks again. And we're out of here, guys. Bye.